Perfect, so it's working. I'm just gonna turn the volume up. There we go. And maybe Diego will move, maybe he won't move, but we can start here. So, it's really warm here in Vancouver, so I've got a fan going, which is the noise you hear, but there's also a lot of construction around. I've closed what I could, so we can do this without too much noise, but you might hear the odd crash and bang because they're furiously constructing in Vancouver, building after building. So welcome to this weekly live development section. If we've never met before, my name is Mark. I'm a teacher for Your Yoga Flow. And these weekly sessions are rotated between the faculty members, and they are usually focusing for 30 minutes on maybe an area of the curriculum that we want to expand upon a little bit in a live situation. Sometimes they're practices, sometimes they are more like continuing education that you can add or think about these types of practices for when you're out there teaching in the world. So some things apply to a practicum, some things don't apply to a practicum and apply more to a teaching life or a practice, personal practice life, which is what today is, because it's all about rolling. And more specifically about rolling with, these are known as yoga balls, but right off the bat, you can use pretty much anything. I used to just use because little Diego really likes chasing tennis balls. So I used to just use a sock with 2 tennis balls and then made a knot to make this type of thing. And then later on I bought these particular balls, which are from Yoga Tune-Up, which is a really great resource for rolling and self-massage. In my opinion, there's lots out there and everybody has their preferred self-massage tool and their preferred practices. But I really like Yoga Tune-Up. One, because the yoga balls were really easy to find here in Canada and also I believe in the US. And also because there was a book that came along with it that had sequences and went into more detail about this self-care practice. So this is just one. I know that, for example, Nancy has a lot of these self-care tools and they're very different. And I'm sure that every faculty member and lots of you as well, lots of students have something that they might use for self-care. And this is for those who maybe are interested in rolling with yoga balls and also those who they've never heard of this before. So this is pretty cool. So why do this? Well, because I find it made a really big difference for me when I was teaching full-time. I had a lot of let's say discomfort in my body from questionable teaching habits. One of them being I tend to favor demoing on my right side and then not demoing and using verbal cues on my left side, which over the course of years can lead to some issues. And I suffered from a lot of back pain and a lot of neck pain and headaches and things like this. And so I decided to just take control of what was happening for me. And I luckily ended up at a studio where they had a whole class using these balls. And I fell in love. And I took the class, and eventually, after a while, ended up teaching the class. So it was an hour and a 15-minute class strictly using these. A couple of yoga shapes, but a lot of just kind of laying around and rolling and practicing deep breathing. Sophie says she's never heard of this. I know it is sort of maybe less well-known part of yoga, self-care practices you can do at home, all of these things. Does it replace seeing a qualified massage therapist? No, probably not. But it's nice maintenance for me to do, at least when I'm on the road, I'm traveling, or just of an evening when I need a little bit extra care. And what we'll do today is we'll just talk a little bit more about rolling and why, and then I'll show you some of the things that I do with this. And if you have 2 tennis balls lying around and a sock, and you want to give it a go, that's great. And if you want to do some more research about it and then maybe look into what this might look like for yourself, then that's also amazing. So what I really like about this is that this little bag, or it would be a sock, just kind of keeps everything in neatly, and it's easy to travel around with. So Juan and I both take these on planes. And because the lumbar support on plane seats and car seats is sort of non-existent, then we tend to just pop them behind our low back so that we have a nice little bit of extension while we're sitting for 8 hours. And so just for that alone, I found them really valuable. But then they have a whole host of other benefits beside that. So it's going to be different for everybody. And some people will enjoy the sensation, some people won't, so it's not a one-size-fits-all practice. But the first thing I wanted to show you that's probably really easy and accessible, because maybe most people have one tennis type ball, one yoga ball, one something available, is using this for a facial massage. So there's actually going to be a upcoming, I don't know when it will be released, but a restorative practice as part of the Ayurveda program that uses balls for a facial and a little bit of a neck massage. So the first way that I like to use this, because I do have a lot of facial tension, I guess, or upper body tension, and I am quite prone to headaches. So what I was taught that I found really valuable was just using a massage ball gently to kind of start working into this area. This part of the body is really hard to access in a yoga class, and there's been yoga classes that I've taught for the 5th chakra, for the throat chakra, and they're always a little bit more challenging to sequence for me because this is an area we don't want to be putting a lot of weight on. There's only certain poses that sort of work this part of the body. So I find adding in something like this can really help me when I am teaching a class that's focusing on the head, the neck, the upper back a little bit. So the first thing I like to do is to take the ball, the yoga ball, anything that you have available, and I just look to one side, and then I'll take the ball into the same hand into the direction I'm looking, and then there's this really big, beautiful muscle in the neck here, and it has a name that I instantly have forgotten, but I bet Angela definitely knows. And then I just take the ball and then I just roll it gently up and down this muscle, and I can already feel there's a couple of points that are a little tender, and I'm just going up to sort of behind the base of my ear and then down. And today, because I'm feeling a little sensitive would be the word, I'm just very light here. There's days when I do press in a little more. I feel like I can handle that, but today not so much. And then the next thing that I like to really draw my attention to and my students' attention to as we're doing this is breath. Because there's a tendency to sort of hold the breath. Because when we sometimes encounter sensation, we can sometimes be waiting for that sensation to pass. And then to do that, we sometimes hold our breath. It's like when you're talking with someone and while they're talking, you might notice you're holding your breath, waiting for them to finish. So this can sometimes happen. So it almost becomes a pranayama exercise, like really deep breathing. Maybe it's ujjayi breath. I find that really helpful to center my mind, to stop it maybe being so distracted. And I just do this a few times. And then I switch to the other side. And the left side of my neck is like definitely tighter than my right. I have a little bit less mobility on my left side, so I find the sensations really different. And then I'm just rolling it up and down, and that feels pretty good. And you could just do this on its own in the morning. Maybe you're at the office and you've got, a 15-minute break and you have these by your desk, and this is something, I think it's fairly accessible. I think that even people who maybe are a little bit frightened of yoga, this might be a nice introduction into self-care practices for these people. And so that's one I like to do. The other is my jawline, because I do, again, have headaches, and sometimes I feel like they might be triggered from clenching or holding. So I just place the ball just at the top of my lower jaw, the very bottom of my upper jaw, and then I just roll it down towards the chin and then back up. And I have so much sunscreen on that it's quite sticky, which I'm not complaining. It's helping the ball kind of traction across the skin. And then just up and down, and then I do the same thing on the other side, which feels, again, different. And up and down, just helping to unravel. And you can also press it just gently into where we started, just at the top of the lower jaw, the bottom of the upper jaw, and then I just sometimes twist it back and forth a little bit, and it tends to sort of grab the skin and the fascia here, and because this ball is a little tacky and the sunscreen thankfully is quite tacky, and so I just gently rotate the ball back and forth. And I see that, oh, Sophie, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you're finding this helpful. Yeah, I also clench my jaw so much. I find that sometimes when I'm walking, I'll notice that I'm clenching it, and then I have to actively remember to maybe release that a little bit. But it's funny the places that we can gather tension without realizing. And so I do both sides, and I can already feel it feels a little bit looser. And then the last one for the upper body that I do is I just place it at the temple, and then I just gently press and roll. And that's really it. It's just little movement, and breathing through it, noticing the sensation. And then after a while, I would switch to the other side, and again, it feels pretty different on this side. Back and forth a little, and then that's it for this part of the body. So when you're out there teaching, and maybe you're in a studio that has something like this, or you have access to these things, it can be a really great way to start a class, to start a hatha practice, a gentle hatha practice. I find this is really nice. Or if you're looking for ways to sort of attract more students to you, or you're looking to create sort of a unique offering in a sea of yoga teachers, then doing something like this, and maybe it is a case of studying something or developing a self-care practice yourself enough that you feel confident sharing it with others, this is something that you can offer in a workshop. Once you feel like you have enough knowledge and resources, and you've done all the necessary steps to be confident in sharing it, then this can be a great tool and practice to offer not only yourself, but if you feel in the future comfortable sharing it, then it's kind of a workshop type offering. When you just have one ball, the other thing that you can do, I'm going to stand up now, is you can roll your feet. Now, I find this so painful, so it's probably good that I do it. And so you just, I think you can see it, you just place the ball under the foot, and then you're just rolling it around under the sole of the foot, and you can go to the outer edge of the foot, and then to the Diego you hear clicking with his feet, the inner line of the foot, and back and forth, and And the really cool thing after you do this is just to notice the difference in the sensation between the feet. This one, we just did a tiny bit there. It already feels way more spread. And then you could do the other foot, and you're just rolling it along the sole of your foot, between the heel and the base of your toes, and back and forth. So it's another, if you're a person who stands a lot in your day, or maybe you're a runner or a biker, and you might suffer from some sort of chronic challenging sensations in your feet because you're relying and using them so much, then this is a great practice. So I'm just gonna check our time. Okay, good, we're about halfway through, so then we can move on to the other parts of the body. And thankfully Diego moved away from the camera shot. So I'm putting the 2 balls back in the bag. So if you were using 2 tennis balls, you would just put them in the sock, tie a knot tight so they're sitting close together. And just be really cautious if you are using anything other than something that's made specifically for self-massage. You want to be really careful about the firmness of it. So the reason I like searching for tools that are specifically made for this type of thing, and you hear the stories of people who use lacrosse balls or golf balls and they have zero give and they can actually make things a lot worse. So I always recommend, when you can, purchasing something that is designed for use, self-massage use. It's really, it just puts my mind at ease. So before you run out and grab a bucket of golf balls, just maybe think and see if you can find something that's designed for this. So what I like to do when I'm doing this practice, first of all, is I just put the balls on my mat. I'm going to go along the spine. Again, this isn't for everybody. I've been doing this for years, so I feel very confident in what I'm doing. And so, as always, proceed with the right amount of caution for you. And I'm gonna aim, at least, to have these yoga balls by my upper shoulder blades. So it can take a little bit of, looks a bit awkward as you're coming down, but right there. So my head's resting down. I could always put a block or some support under my head if I needed a little more. And then they're just about around the top of my shoulder blades. Now that might be enough sensation. The other thing to notice too is that I'm in quite a fair bit of extension in my low back. So if that wasn't comfortable, then I would just put something under my hips as well, maybe another block or a folded up blanket. But for me, that feels actually quite nice today. So I could just stay here and I could breathe through the sensation of those balls just gently pressing into the muscles on either side of my spine. Or I can invite in a little movement. And what I like to do here is to take my arms up overhead, and then I kind of cactus my arms and bring them back down by my side. I'm just feeling that sensation as I do this. Arms up. And then cactus, so you can, if you have the space, I don't, but you could just circle the arms around. But if you think about when you're in a classroom with people, it's really difficult to sometimes have that snow angel space on either side, so I just like to cactus. And this really requires some deep breaths. And then I would do this for, well, maybe today I would do this for a few minutes, and then I just awkwardly, or not awkwardly, just roll those balls down a little more. You can actually just roll down, but the mat's quite sticky. So now they're just kind of at the base of my shoulder blades. It already feels different, and to be honest, at this point, I probably would like something under my hips for a little bit more support. I feel like that's quite a fair amount of extension from my low back, but here we are. I didn't bring any prop close by, so I'm working with what I have. And again, I could just stay here and breathe. And there's already tons happening. Or I can do something similar. I can bring my arms up, and then I can cactus and bring them back round, and I probably would have liked some head support too. My neck feels fine, but just to make it extra comfortable. And it's the same pattern. You do it for as long as it makes sense, and then I'm going to roll back a little more so that the yoga balls are now way past my shoulder blades, almost kind of at the center of my mid-back, I guess. And that already feels easier on the rest of my body. So maybe that other position wasn't ideal today, but that feels better in my low back, it feels better in my upper body. And I could stay here, or again, can move the arms, and you might do different things, maybe hugging yourself, or just letting the arms rest up overhead might be enough for you. And so I'm sure you can see we're rolling, we go sort of slowly going down through the spine. And I probably would roll maybe one more time back a little bit to let these yoga balls settle a little bit more towards the top of the low back, I guess. And take a deep breath. And then we're quite far away from the upper body now, so there's not much that we can do with the upper body in order to change the sensation. So I'm actually just going to either let my arms rest by my sides or maybe up overhead. And that's all I would do as I start to get down towards the lower back, would be to just kind of rest here. So it becomes like a little bit less work. And then I'm going to roll off those yoga balls. And then the other thing that I like to do, and I don't actually have a yoga block available, which is interesting, so I'm going to use a book. So I like a yoga block because it's higher up, but I just have a book here. And then for the back of my head, which is where I feel a lot of tension, so usually it'd be a block, it'd be way higher up, but here we are working with a book. And I've placed those yoga balls here. This is maybe my most favorite thing to do. You want to be really mindful. If you do have any neck issues, be extra cautious, because we are going to be bringing the chin into the chest a little more, and that might not work for everybody. But it does work for me, and I do enjoy the sensation. And we're going to aim to have these yoga balls at the grooves at the back of the skull. So where the back of the skull and the top of the neck begin to meet. And so lying down and then finding that really nice position for them where they just sort of slot in, and right away, wow, there's a lot of sensation. And I would just bring my arms down by my sides. And then there's some days where all I do is just stay totally still here and breathe, and just let the weight of my head do all of the work here. Like, there's literally nothing to do. If there's something particular, or some sort of maybe this tension I'm noticing, or I realize that a little movement might be nice, it's very, very subtle and gentle. I just look up a little more and then look down a little more, and that rolls those yoga balls very, very gently in that area. It's micro movements. And sometimes I stay here for a good few minutes, and I find it oddly relaxing, oddly calming for my nervous system, and a nice way to address a lot of the tension that I feel in the back of my head and neck. And again, it's not for everybody, but this really works for me. And then I would take a moment to just gently take those balls out and move your block or your book, and just bring the head back down. So that's sort of my upper body routine that I do for rolling. And then you can do your whole lower body too. So you could take one of the balls out and you can work on just bringing it to one side to one glute. You could extend the leg out, and then you can roll that glute a little bit, and you can do both sides. And you can also do your like the IT band area. You can bring them together, and you can place them on the IT band and roll, just like you would with a foam roller, I guess. Lots of you might have foam rollers. So that's sort of my personal rolling self-massage practice, and I find it really helpful and a really lovely addition to the other types of movement that I do. So I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of gym, I do a lot of running and biking, and that definitely takes its toll. And there's not, for me at least, there's not a one cure-all for all of those things. And I like to be able to do my best to maintain the self-care level of self-care that I receive when I see other practitioners. So I find this a really versatile, useful tool. And I hope, so the hope during this is not to teach you how to do this or to suggest that everybody do this, but to spark a little flame of maybe imagination or interest into looking further into these things, because anecdotally I found it extremely helpful for myself. And I think that the more that we can expand our horizons to look for other ways to take care of ourselves, then the more well-rounded we are, as not only as practitioners of movement, but also as teachers of movement. And you never know where something will take you, on what path you might end up going down when you start exploring. So, Sophie says, thank you, it's been really interesting. Oh, she's gonna go get some now. Well, I hope that, and if you have any questions about the particular ones that I use, or if any of the other teachers use different ones, because maybe you know that this might not work for you, then just pop a comment in, and we'll tag who we need to, and we'll do our best to get back to you. So yeah, ask away. And we also have the benefit of having people who practice bodywork for a living on the team, and they might be able to offer wonderful suggestions too. So thank you for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to take some time to connect virtually and digitally live in person. This will be posted, and then also it will end up on our Vimeo page with the playlist of all the previous sessions on there that you can go back and take a look at. So thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you again all very, very soon. Okay, take care.